Okay, babies. This is Friday, February 5th, so you should have this packet in front of you, and you should be watching the video as part of your Algebra 1 time with me, okay? So, today we're going to go ahead and we're going to introduce quadratic equation, the quadratic formula, and how to solve quadratic equations with the quadratic formula. We've done a little bit of it before, but the quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. The first thing that you need to notice is that the plus and minus symbol. That means that the formula, not formula, but formula, breaks into two parts, and we're going to see that towards the end of the paper. Now, the first thing that you need to do is to make sure that the quadratic equation is in standard form or descending order. That's very important. Now, we've done that before when we divided polynomials, but it's very important because you can get mixture your term A, B, and C. So, for example, for this equation over here, your A would be 1, your B would be negative 2, and your C would be negative 15. So, when you try to factor a quadratic equation and try to find the zeros of the equation that way, and you cannot factor, this would be the second best way to try to figure out those zeros. So just take the formula, which you have it on your reference sheet, and you just start substituting away. That negative 2 times that negative 2 becomes a positive 2. You can see it right there. Plus minus, and then your b squared, that would be negative 2. You have to write it in parentheses. We've talked about this before, where whenever you're plugging in or you're substituting, you have to put it in parentheses. And then minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is negative 15. All of that is going to be divided by 2 times a, and a would be 1. All right, so negative 2 squared would be positive 4. Negative 4 times 1 times negative 15 would be plus 60. And then that's divided by 2. When you add that up, you get 64. And everybody in here knows, or should know, that the square root of 64 is 8. So now you have 2 plus or minus 8 divided by 2. And this is where you divide the problem into two, the plus and the minus. So 2 plus 8 equals 10. 10 divided by 2 equals 5. Now 2 minus 8 would be negative 6, and that divided by 2 would be negative 3. So the zeros of the equation would be 5 and negative 3. So let's go ahead and practice a little bit with this. All right, so turn to your next page. And let's go ahead and start solving. First thing that you need to do is make sure that the formula is in standard form, which it is. And then we're going to identify my A, B, and C. Your A is the quadratic term, which is 1. Your B is the linear term, which is 8. And your C is your constant, which is 15, which is also the y-intercept of the equation. So now we're going to substitute the values into the quadratic formula and find the two solutions for x. All right, so that would be minus 8 plus minus square root of 8 squared minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 15. All of that divided by 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. All right. So inside the parenthesis, inside the square root, I have 8 squared would be 64. And then 4 times 1 times 15 would be 60. And 2 times 1 would be 2. Still inside the square root, negative 8 plus minus 64 minus 60 is 4, and that's divided by 2. Square root of 4 would be 2. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and take that and divide it into the two problems so that I can find my two zeros. So one would be minus, the other one would be plus. So minus 8 plus 2 divided by 2, or minus 8, negative 8 minus 2 divided by 2. Negative 8 plus 2 would be negative 6. And negative 6 divided by 2 means that one of the x's or one of the zeros is negative. I'm sorry, I forgot the negative. Negative 3. And then the other one would be negative 8 and negative 2 would be negative 10. Divided by 2 would be negative 5. Which means that my x's are negative 3 and negative 5. Alright, same thing for the other one. Make sure that it's on standard form, which it is, and now let's identify A, B, and C. A is your quadratic term, which is 2. B is your linear term, which is negative 5. And C is your constant or your y-intercept, which is 2. And now what we have to do is substitute all those values in the quadratic formula. So negative, the opposite of negative 5, that's how you read it. And then inside would be negative 5 squared minus 4 times A, which is 2, times C, which is another 2. And all of that divided by 2 times A, which is 2 times 2. And opposite of negative 5 would be 5 plus minus. And then negative 5 squared would be 25. And 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 would be 16. And then 2 times 2 would be 4. All right, 25 minus 16 would be 9, I'm sorry. So that you have 5 plus minus the square root of 9 divided by 4. Now we got to do the square root of 9. 5 plus minus square root of 9 is 3 divided by 4. Now this is where we have those two problems, one plus and one minus, and one you add and the other one you take away. So that would be 5 plus 3 divided by 4, or 5 minus 3 divided by 4. 5 plus 3 is 8. 8 divided by 4 equals 2. And then 5 minus 3 is 2. 2 divided by 4 is 2/4, which we're going to simplify to 1/2. So my x's, or my zeros, I'm sorry, I wasn't aware that you can see. My x's would be 2, the zeros of the function, or positive 1/2. Those are my x-intercepts. All right, let's do the next one. So let's go to the next page. So for the next step, for the next page or the next problem, first thing that you got to do is make sure that it's in standard form, but it is not. In order to be in standard form, it has to be equal to 0, which means I'm going to have to take away 8 on both sides. And when I do that, I get that 3x squared minus 10x minus 8 equals 0. So there's my quadratic equation in standard form. So now let's identify the terms. A is your quadratic term, which is 3. B is your linear term, which is negative 10. And C is your constant or your y-intercept, which is negative 8. Now we're going to go ahead and substitute. So my two x's would be the opposite of b, which is negative 10, plus minus negative 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is 3, times c, which is negative a. All of that divided by 2 times 3. All right, the opposite of negative 10 is 10, so that would be 10 plus minus negative 10 squared would be 100. Negative 4 times 3 times negative 8 is plus 96, and 2 times 3 would be 6. Too long. Sorry about that. All right. So 10 plus minus 100 plus 96 is 196. All right. The square root of 196 is 14. There it is. So this would be 10 plus minus 14 divided by 6. So this is where we do both problems. One adding, and then one subtracting. 10 plus 14 equals 24. 24 divided by 6 is 4. 10 minus 14 is negative 4. And negative 4 6 can be simplified to negative 2/3. All right, so what are my x's? What are my zeros? Zeros of the function, or x-intercept? X equals 4, or x equals negative 2/3. All right, at this point I'm going to do one more, and then you guys are going to take over the back of the worksheet. All right, so I'm going to do number 8 for you. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write the formula. Go ahead and write it at the top of the worksheet. I want to write it over here where it says name. So x equals negative b plus minus b squared minus 4ac, all of that divided by 2a. And this formula, you can find it on your reference sheet, so you don't need to worry about learning the formula. Although you're probably going to write it so much that you'll end up learning it. All right, so let's go to number 8. First thing, yep, you guessed it, to make sure that it is on standard form or equal to 0, which is not. So I'm going to have to add 10 on both sides of the equation so that this can cancel out and it's equal to 0. And I get 2m squared minus 7m minus 3. All right. So now let's identify my a, b, and c. My a is my quadratic term, which is 2. B is your linear term, which is negative 7. And C is your constant, or your y-intercept, which is negative 3. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write the formula once again. Now you guys don't have to write it again because you have it at the top of your page. And I'm going to go ahead and write it just because I cannot see it. So x equals opposite of b plus minus b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. All right, this would be the opposite of negative 7. Now some of you are probably already know that that's going to be a positive 7. So if you want to go ahead and write the positive 7 right there and then, I don't have a problem with that. This is negative 7 squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is negative 3. And all of that divided by 2 times 2. All right. So opposite of negative 7 would be 7. Negative 7 squared is 49. And then 4 times, negative 4 times 2 times negative 3 would be plus 24. All of that divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. All right, 49 plus 24. I think I put a negative. Yeah, that's a negative 3. That's a plus 24. Yep. All right. Four times 2, 8. 8 times 3, 24. Yeah, I got it. All right. So this would be 7. 49 plus 24 is 73 divided by 4. Okay? And it cannot, it's not divisible by any perfect square root. So what we're going to do is we're just going to write them. My x's, I'm not going to do the decimal. We can do the decimal if we need to. But I'm not going to. We're just going to go ahead and leave it like that. So it will be 7 plus square root of 73 divided by 4. Or it could be 7 minus square root of 73 divided by 4. So you can say that your x's are 7 plus square root of 73 divided by 4, or 7 minus square root of 73 divided by 4. Now, if you wanted to do this as a decimal, then you would say 7 I'm going to put parentheses at the top since I have a binomial as a numerator. So you would say 7 plus square root of 73 and then you're going to divide that by 4. And you can round that off to 3.89. And then I'm going to do the same, but instead of a plus, it's going to be a minus. And that would be negative 0.39. So my x's are 3.89, and negative 0.39. All right. So at this point, what I need you to do is to go ahead and work out 1 through 7, 1 through 7 from this worksheet, 1 through 7 from this worksheet on your own, okay? So make sure you do that. All right, babies, I hope you have a great, great weekend. I miss you guys already. I'll be there Wednesday. Make sure that you watch the second video on Monday and Tuesday. So remember, the first video would be problems 1 through 6, and the second video will be problems 7 through 12. Make sure you're watching those on your split rosters wherever you need to go. Alrighty? Love you guys. You guys be safe.